Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
This is my guest, Thorsten. Thorsten, would you like to introduce yourself a little?
Yeah, sure. Hello. Welcome to our library. I'm Thorsten, a colleague of TJ's, an engineer at Sourcecraft. Um, and yeah, I'm also interested in Neovim and programming and sitting in front of the fire and talking shop about, Lua and vimrc files or vim.lua files. Init.lua, sorry.
Nice,
Starting with,
yeah.
starting with
We
all
can
the
still use
wrong.
Vim. We can still use Vim script. It's allowed. It's allowed. Um, yeah. So Thorsten and I, we work together. This is our library that we always spend Fridays in for Sourcecraft. Just a classic, classy remote workplace. Nothing too much to see here.
They say remote work is not as nice as a proper office, but this is pretty nice, right?
This is pretty nice. I mean, this is just our Friday hangout. On Monday through Thursday, we sit in like our nicer library. Obviously, this is the casual one.
Best part is your clothes don't smell of the fire. It's all super clean.
Yeah.
Oh, my mic is too
Here,
quiet.
I just turned you up. I just turned you up.
All right.
Is that
Is
better,
it better
Chad?
now?
Chad, is this better? Keep talking, Thorsten.
Okay. I don't know. What should I say? Let's talk about our library. How we started this library, which books we bought.
Okay, cool. They said that's better. Chat, you
Okay.
guys need to ask some questions to Thorsten. Think of some cool questions to ask. Like maybe, hey, Thorsten, have you ever written any books, for example?
I did write 2 books, yes. I wrote a book called Writing an Interpreter in Go, and I wrote the follow-up, a sequel to a programming language book called Writing a Compiler in Go. And you can get them at interpreterbook.com or compilerbook.com.
Nice. That's impressive that you got those URLs.
I actually have more. I think I have the .org too.
Oh, nice.
I also have, I don't know, bytecodebook.org or bytecode. I have monkeylang.org, which is monkey is the language that we build in those books, and monkeylang.org is where people post their own implementations of the language, which is cool.
Nice. We've got a viewer, Ober, who says that he's currently reading your book right now. He has it open in front of him.
Nice. I'll sign it.
Punchy Penguin wonders, are you Norwegian?
No, I'm German. I'm German and I'm based near Frankfurt in Germany.
There we go.
Basically right in the middle of Germany. But I'm actually Bavarian, so I'm not too close to Frankfurt.
Nice.
No.
We've got some people who are following your progress with Rust. They'd like to see a compiler book with Rust when you're done, Thorsten.
Do you want to see a compiler book in Rust where somebody doesn't know how to write Rust?
That's, I feel, most books are written by people who don't know what they're doing, though. So then you'd be like more of the average author in that case,
Yeah, you pay me money to review my code and send me corrections.
Yeah.
Like this, you should actually do this here. Then you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, hey, thanks for the bits and thanks for the subs, people. Let's shall we move on to some code? Any other questions? Oh, Began wonders, will you sign his OAuth token?
Yes. Send me all of your OAuth tokens. Send me all of your passwords, keys, whatever you want. Me at thorstenball.com. I'll sign it.
You have all the cool addresses. I need to start getting on these cool address trains. Are you really me at Thorsten Ball?
I'm me at Thorsten Ball, but I can, you can use a wildcard, so you can say, I don't know, foobar at thorstenball.com, whatever.
They'll all go there.
I will get that email. I haven't dared to use it yet. Like in official occasions where you put in, this is boring at thorstenball.com or whatever.
Yeah.
So I always sheepishly still use my Gmail address, which is Mr. Nugget, my nickname at gmail.com, which I've had since 20 years. And,
nice.
It's embarrassing to say to your bank person, Mr. Nugget at gmail.com.
If someone sends an email to you at thorstenball.com, is that going to be to them, or is it from you, or do we become Thorsten Ball? Those are kind of the
I'll
questions that we tackle on this stream.
if you send to you@thorstenball.com, I'll receive the email, switch out the names, and you get it back thinking that it was you or something.
Awesome.
We
All
have
right,
the
Jen.
technology.
Any last questions for our guest? Make sure you follow him on Twitter. You can see his Twitter here. That's where you'll get all the good emails. Otherwise, we'll get started with maybe writing code, but probably just talking about Neovim. You guys know how it goes. You've been on the stream before.
So, and I'll interrupt you with, questions.
All right, let's get on over to here. Cool. All right, so this is a terminal. Does Thorsten use Neovim? Yes, that's why we're here today.
Yes.
In fact,
I love it.
Go ahead,
I
Thorsten.
love it so much. I love it so much more since 4 weeks ago when TJ joined Sourcegraph, or 3 weeks ago, because he showed me like this is now possible with Vim.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of eyeing VS Code, and TJ was like, "Why do you use VS Code? You shouldn't." And I was like, "I know, man." And he says like, "Our LSP stuff is good." So now I switched back to Neovim and the nightly release of 0.5 and the built-in, LSP client, and it's really good. Like, it's just fun using it, and I enjoy programming much more now.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Oh, that is a great question, Thorsten. Have you ever done any Lua before you started messing around with it in Neovim?
I haven't written Lua, but I've read through the implementation of Lua 3 and Lua 5 for the books, actually, because they are, relatively easy to understand implementations of a bytecode machine. The first one, I think Lua 3 is a stack-based virtual machine. Mm-hmm. Lua 5 is a register-based virtual machine. They have really cool features like closures. So the implementation of how closures work in Lua, this is done with up values. And,
Lua's up values are very cool. Hey, Rex, thanks for the raid. So, that's funny. I didn't realize that you had read through. You probably know more about the implementation than I do. Although it's changed a bit since 5.0, I think. So.
Yes, there was a huge change in 5.3 or something, and then
well,
of course
they don't do semver, so it's very confusing for people when they're like. So Neovim uses 5.1 as the default standard, mostly so that we can ship LuaJIT, right? Because LuaJIT is like insane. It's just like mind-blowingly fast. Yeah. So, but like people are like, why isn't Neovim upgrading to like 5.2 or 5.3? And it's like, it's not an upgrade. They're just like different.
Yeah, they're different. Yeah. What's the name of the LuaJIT fork? It's not Raptor, right?
There's like, so what happened was LuaJIT made its own thing, and then there's like several LuaJIT forks, but Mike Paul's actually back doing stuff again in LuaJIT land.
Is he?
Yeah, so that's been really good for us because he like recently they released some patches for like the M1 Mac and stuff like that too, because people were like, oh, we can't get LuaJIT to work and stuff. So
the legend returns.
Yeah.
Do you know that there's like this scripting language called Ren, written by Bob Nystrom, who wrote crafting interpreters and game programming patterns, and he has a shootout on the website of the language, and he says like, it's pretty fast for a scripting language. This is how it compares to Lua. This is how it compares to Python, Ruby, and of course LuaJIT is far ahead. Like it's just so much further ahead. And he writes because Mike Paul is a robot from the future. Right?
That is how it feels. That is how it feels, though.
Yeah, I looked up his old, like, I think 8 or 9 years ago, he posted, like, reading recommendations for the LuaJIT source code on Reddit, where it's like, start at this file, then read through this, read through the ASM JIT thing that he built.
Yeah.
And it's just, imagine you were given, like, a really hard problem, like how to make the fastest JIT compiler interpreter for a interpreted language, and you put like a really smart person for a really long time on it, and they put so much effort in it and just engineer the hell out of it, and that like, LuaJIT is impressive to me.
Yeah, and it's just crazy because it's like we just embedded it inside of Neovim. I don't know if I showed you this too. Like So recently we shipped some like more integrations between, and we keep on trying to make more integrations between. Oh, by the way, is my mic better? I was on the wrong input source. Chat, tell me if mic's better. But we did this cool thing where we said you can pass Lua functions into Vim script as references to the Lua functions. So you can do something like this where you go like math 1, 2, 3, right? So we're in Vim script land. Lua eval function, I think it's kv. It's past the key and the value for the math. Return like k colon v. You can still see this, right? Yep. And this. Let's see if I typed this good enough. Oops. Lua eval. Did I? Oh, whoops! I can't do these double quotes here, of course. So see that it actually called the Lua function here for map on 1, 2, 3. So you actually, because like it's so easy to embed that you can just like make LuaJIT just magically be function references inside of Vim script, which is just like so crazy.
Yeah.
So
I saw the what's it called, the Lua guide for Vim or something.
Nano-T's Lua guide. Mm-hmm.
And it has all of the API things that you want, where it's here's how you can basically jump into Lua, and here's how you can call Lua from inside Vim, and here's how you can call Vim from inside Lua, and it's just it's nice. Like it's a small API, but it's super powerful.
Right. Yeah. Mechanisms over policies, right? That's Lua's sort of like tagline for how you implement things, right? Since you can like it's yeah, because like you can do object-oriented style programming or other things like that with it. You just use meta tables. But it's like, oh, well, we didn't make classes. We just made the mechanism to accomplish that. And dang, we got B. Friedel in the chat. Another Neovim core dev. What's up, B. Friedel? Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. Okay, so shall we start a little?
Go.
We can write some code. We'll see how far we get.
Yeah, let's make the cow move. Let's make top left.
Yeah, we don't want to. Apparently I started off the stream just insulting Lisp programmers on accident. Sorry. I know probably Tammy, you're out there writing Fennel, compiling it down. I apologize. So we'll move it. Okay, so
I feel like that Lisp quote is outdated, and you could put other languages in there, but I don't want to offend them.
We'll talk about it off stream.
Yeah, let's navigate around this.
Oh man. Okay, cool. So here's where I'm at right now for what we're doing with SourceGraph and Neovim. But what I'll start with is I'll give, because you had mentioned before you're a little interested to see, how do I iterate locally on different things. Yeah. So the first thing is I guess we should probably do. Let me just make. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. Telescope file browser. Don't know if you've seen this yet. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's pretty sweet. File browser.
Is this what I saw? What I saw on the README, where I said to you, "Oh, I could use this to basically replace my shitty glue code note-taking script that I have."
Oh yeah, I think it could be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Like, so it's pretty sweet because it even will do this. Let's say I make scratch / packages.lua or something like this. I press, it's like, hey, that file doesn't exist. You can create the file, and it'll even recursively make dir, which is pretty sweet.
Nice.
But okay, so I don't know if you know, but there's a magic. It's not really magic. This thing called package loaded in Lua. It's like built in. This is how Lua does requires basically. So there's a couple things that happen. So you type require my package. This basically just says, hey, look for something in package.path using package.loaders that matches something like my package.lua or my package / init.lua, right? So that's how like lookups work in Lua generally. What this does is this will only like execute the file one time, right?
Yeah.
And because that's like normally how sort of like imports work and whatnot. But oftentimes you want to be able to, re-execute files when you're doing things inside of like when you're iterating, which I do like really often. So if you want to manually set it, you can just then set like package.loaded, like my package equals nil. So this will erase the like memory that Lua has of that package, and it'll say, oh, it's nil. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to load it up again. And so then it will attempt to re-execute that file.
So
yeah, go ahead.
If you require package, you get back like an object, or what's it called in Lua? Is it a dictionary
Table.
or map or something?
It's just called table because it can be all of those things, right?
Okay, so and that value is cache, right? Because I've seen this pattern where people do what you did a couple years ago in JavaScript, where you return an object, which is consisting of closures where you wrap global state in your file, but then you return just
Yeah, so I think like a pattern that you'll pretty commonly see is people do something like this: local m equals this, and then at the end they'll do return for like module. Pretty common to do. And then you can just store whatever you want into that table, and then you can of course hide other local functions by not exposing them inside there. Also, convention for me when I'm writing is anything with the underscore prefix. Thanks, Chico. Is private, but like it's still exposed. Maybe I want to be able to test it or do other things like that. But I'd say that's a pretty common convention in like especially the Neovim world. So yeah.
So what I want to know is, I want to write a lot of these small files where I could put a function in written in Lua that uses something that the Vim API has to offer, and I would want to put a key binding in it. In order to iterate over this, and I'm ashamed to admit it here on stream and live, I basically restarted Vim all the time. And it's like, okay, restart Vim, and now run the key binding and see if it works this time.
All right,
I want to see what you do.
Like, we have to end the stream. We're just no. Okay, so here's one of the tricks that I have two that I think are pretty helpful. Well, one thing that I see people not do very often is like make their own short little globals in their config that they can use to debug like effectively and quickly. So for example, for me, one thing that I do is like I just have capital P be vim.inspect that thing and then return it. So if I wanted to like, you'll see me do this kind of pattern where I just write P of the variable. So now that prints an inspected version of that. So you don't just get like table : blah, 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 right? You're going to get like an actual pretty table representation. Another trick that I do is I have this thing here, which I just call capital R. But you can call it whatever you want. You could just call it reload. And all you'd have to do is you could just make you'd make some function like reload. It's a function that takes a package name. Then you could just do package.loaded package equals nil, return require package. Right? So you follow me so far, right? What we're going to do is we're going to drop the package and then require it. So then in your mapping, where you have like no remap, like ASDF, Lua, you could just say reload my function dot whatever, like this, right? So now this now every time you hit the keys, it's gonna reload that. And that's like obviously that's fast enough in Lua for like everything you want to do. For example, we can look at what I have for telescope. So my telescope, every time I source this file, it reloads telescope and all its dependencies, which is just like the other libraries, right? So if I'm changing anything along the way, oh, sorry, as the Primogen mentions, ASDF is quite offensive. We need to do AEIOU. Prime, well, I don't remember what the letters are for Dvorak.
Is it because the Emacs package manager is called ASDF or something?
No, it's because he doesn't use QWERTY. He's a non-QWERTY user. I don't want to offend non-QWERTY users. I'm sorry, Prime. I'm sorry. So yeah, sorry, Prime. All right, we fixed it now. But actually, so what I have, it's a bit complicated, but we'll skip to the main bits of what happens. Is that I actually, well, this is kind of a cool trick. I think you'll like it. So set meta table, right? Or no? Yeah. I'll explain it for chat. So set meta
Yeah.
table pretty much there's these things called meta methods in Lua, and they pretty much just define behaviors of tables so that you can override them to do lots of things. It's kind of like operator overloading in other languages, right? So you could do, like you can do add, for example, and it can take a function left, right, and you can do stuff here. But that's fine. So index is what happens when you don't have a key in that table. It'll call this function. So there's a nifty trick that you can do where you can return an empty table in the set meta table, but then set index to a function, which just lets you always call this function anytime you want to access something in that table. You follow what I'm saying, Thorsten, there?
Yes, I was just going to write in the chat that I knew all of this, of course.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, you should let them know. You should just make sure that they know that you already knew.
I already knew.
Yeah, you already knew.
I didn't. But yeah, I try to look like, just not along.
Oh yeah, wow, very new information.
Oh yeah, skip to the hard part.
Right, exactly. So the trick though that I do is all of my telescope mappings, for example, they all call tj.telescope.
Yeah.
And it actually reloads this every time. So if I change any of my configuration, it just like automatically gets changed every single time, right? So I have like what's an example of one that we could do? So I can go to edit Neovim. So I have shortened path as false, which means it doesn't make these one character things. If I change this to true, and then I do it again, now they're shortened. So it reloads this configuration every single time too, as well, right? So I can like really iterate quickly on this. Telescope is probably the one that I have set up best for this. Yeah, go ahead.
For a non-telescope superhero such as yourself, as somebody who really only wants to write 10 lines, I would drop the reload thing in my init Lua, and then put my Lua file in a separate folder and just require it. Put the reload in the binding if I want to.
Exactly, which will just make it reload that thing every time.
And do you use something like I use LuaPad, this extension where you have like this interactive, it shows you what each line evaluates to, or I think standard out.
Yeah, I don't use LuaPad mostly because I'm always worried that I'm gonna do something destructive. Like, I work with some things that do stuff with file systems and whatnot, so I'm like always worried that I'm gonna break stuff. Hey, Artman, thanks for the raid. So like the way that I usually do it is I have a couple workflows. I have a couple workflows. I think the first one is getting your reload thing going really quick. Yeah. And then the other trick you can do is like here I have like a .test in this module, the one that I was making for SourceGraph.
Yeah.
Right? So like what you could do is I will do this on stream pretty often, is I'll do like no remap. I'll do ASDF, sorry, Prime. I'm using, this one's for me, not for general people. So Prime, it's okay that we're using ASDF here. And I'll just say, like reload, this would be SourceGraph. .test, like this.
Yeah.
So now I just put the code in here that I want to run, and then I just hit ASDF, boom, ran the code. Okay, nice. That looks like what I want, etc. Yeah.
And it's all in that file. You have a single file. This is sourcegraph.lua, and you have this in your Neovim folder, and
yeah, this one's in like a plugin, but yeah, same thing. You could put it inside of your own config as well. Yep.
Okay, and since this vim.command is evaluated when this is required or read, it means you just need to put this into the file and require the file, and then you're ready to go and just
Yep.
That's cool.
Another thing that I use this one like all the these are like, they're not secret tricks. If you watch stream chat, you'll figure it out. But one that I often do is I have two mappings that I really like. I have leader X, which is just a function that if I'm in a Vim script file, executes the line, and if I'm in a Lua file, puts Lua and then executes the line. So when I do
Oh.
leader X, I just executed this line. So now ASDF is this thing, right? So it just executed that one line. And so now it affects the state.
What is that 50 underscore executor?
Yeah, we can look at it. It's in.
Should we look at it? Is this something you want to show to other people?
Yeah, it's okay. So
50 underscore executor doesn't sound like it's.
It's just because it's a script local function.
All right.
So
all right.
this is Vim script land. I've had this one for a long time. This is oldie but a goodie. So this just checks the file type. It says, hey, run this line. Otherwise, run the line that you're on currently in Vim script. So it's like really, really simple. Leader X. And then the second bit as well is I have leader X, which I really like, which saves the file and then either sources or Lua files it. So
Leader. I've never heard of this. That somebody does two. That's interesting.
You just keep on throwing mappings around, Just keep on deeper and deeper. I should make
it's
leader,
like a whole new work namespace that you just open up for me.
Right.
It's like, oh, all my F bindings are already covered. I need some new letter that is on my home row ideally, so I can do leader. But leader, like, you know what I heard? That the best way for mappings is if the hands change between each keystroke. So you want to have leader A, P or something.
Yeah.
But double the same hand twice, not as good, not as fast. And as we know, we're about, this is microseconds we're talking about.
True.
Precious time.
But my leader I hit with my thumb, so it feels pretty good. Like, it feels pretty good to hit it twice, you know what I mean? So
probably train that, like, exercise it, yeah.
Every day when I get up, I start with a thumb war, you know what I mean? And there's really no other way to get strong and fast in Vim. So.
Yes. And you have the pull-up bar where you just hang on your thumbs for 30 minutes.
Yeah. And and most of the time I just type without my pinkies to make sure that I'm not getting Emacs fingers. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so these two mappings I really like though. And they allow me to iterate like really quick because I always just remember to press leader X that executes this line, whether I'm in VimScript or Lua, because we can just write functions, right? And then leader X will execute the whole file, which is nice. So if you have the other thing that I'll often do, so if I don't want to set up like this kind of mapping situation here, what I'll do is I'll just I literally have one right here. I didn't know that I was doing this. Why do I have lens here? That doesn't seem right.
What is lens? What is a lens?
I don't know. I don't remember why I wrote this. I was thinking about I need a name for telescope things that like where you combine a picker and a finder and a sorter and a previewer all into one, like a specially made one. I was thinking about calling them lenses because it's like in a telescope,
All right.
But okay, so this is the thing that I was showing you earlier. We can chat about how this actually works, but this calls source, right? And it just does search JSON. Right now it's just hard coded to search Neovim's thing, and then it asks for a function name. It'll run this, and then I wrote something that turns the results we get back from SourceGraph into a telescope picker. So now when I just do leader X to run this file, it calls this function at the bottom, right?
Oh.
And then I can just type the thing that I was thinking before, like nlua something, and now it's going to search for all those, and then I could fuzzy find on this like cstir as stir or something like that, like this, and then it doesn't do anything else after that, right? Like I don't have I didn't implement the second part yet. I just have it so it loads it up and shows things.
Okay, so let's start at the top. Like source is the SourceGraph CLI that you can use to search SourceGraph on the CLI.
Yeah. And
you wrote this function here to basically use source to search SourceGraph, and you put hard-coded the Neovim repo in there.
Right.
You can put any repo in there.
Yep.
And then you feed the results into Telescope.
Yep.
And then you can fuzzy search over those results, right?
Exactly right. Yep.
All right.
So we could just change this to do repo, and we can just change this to say repo, like that. So now we could say instead we could do something like github.com/sourcegraph/sourcegraph.
Yes.
What's a function that I should search for in sourcegraph, Thorsten? What's one you wrote this week?
Oh boy. Delete me.
Delete.
No, I'm not. Something with duct tape in its name.
Hacks. Oh, we don't want to search. We can do that.
Search for. I don't know. I have a file where I have a huge duct tape and ASCII art in it, and that is in this repo. Search for file reconciler test script.go. I'm not sure if it's dashes or.
We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Oh, nothing. Okay.
Okay, and then do search for file
Yeah.
again, but just reconciler at the start.
Okay. It's thinking. It's thinking.
It's working.
Oh.
Error detected.
I need to set the timeout for longer, in case we're hitting some cold caches. I think. Let me wait for. Oh shoot! I don't remember. No, it's this one. Plenary job. I don't remember sync. Is it just the first? Okay, cool. Sweet. So we can make it wait for 10 seconds. Okay. Oh, that time it went fast, but nothing. Am I doing the right thing?
Repo, and then you have the input.
Yeah.
Do you escape the input somehow?
Not that I know of. Maybe I should be, but let me just search for like query. Let's just search for like resolver or something like that. We should have like a million of those. Yeah. So there you go. So then it's like, sweet. You just search for that. Schedule. Oh. Uh-oh. I just segfaulted Neovim. That's embarrassing. B. Friedel, I blame it on you. B. Friedel, if you're still here, that's on you.
Nice.
That's weird. That's pretty weird. Okay, well.
Oh, the directory is called reconciler test script.
Okay, I gotcha. Uh-oh.
I think I would go at the end.
Well, I'll have to fix that later. That's why we can't release 0.5 yet. Everyone is asking for 0.5. There you go.
This is live.
This is real. This is real.
Would have edited that out and put like a little clip in there where we're like, oh, we just had to restart.
Yeah, sorry. OBS crashed or something, or like.
Yeah.
Sorry, someone opened up VS Code somewhere else and it crashed my computer somehow. It was weird. Okay, so yeah, so anyways, that's at least the point of what's happening. So you can see we're just running this. I probably do need to do some escaping or something like that inside of here to get these working correctly, would be my guess. But
yeah. I mean, Sourcegraph accepts different kinds of search strings where you could regex or plain or structural search.
Structural search would be pretty interesting. Would be to take like a tree sitter thing and turn it into structural search. You could just search for that over like other places, like your visual selection or something. Would be pretty
so you could select a function call and then turn this into structural search and show me all of the other calls across the world, basically.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Okay, so I'll show you then, because you're Chad, if you don't know, this just returns a bunch of JSON blobs. Okay, we can go over that later. But basically, I take this JSON, I just turn it into a Lua table, right? So now I just wrote this function earlier that does result to telescope, which just turns the result of a source graph query to telescope. So we can go over how that works if you're interested to see how like I'm making some of those things happen.
Let's see.
Cool. So if I recall, the thing itself kind of looks like this. We get some like results. Whoops. It's got results, and I think that's some list of stuff in the JSON.
Yeah.
And so the way that I actually found this out, I can actually just iterate through how I was working through this, and I can show you what I'm doing. So I would do something like this: p result, and then I'll just for right now I'll do return. So that we'll stop here, right? So let's go back and let's just do this on Neovims, because I know a few things that will just return like 5 entries. So if I do like nlua stir comp like this, it's gonna hit Neovim, and then we get the result back. So it's like, okay, cool. Now I just printed off what the result looks like. I can see there's like alerts, doesn't look like it's important to me. How long it took, I don't care. Here's the query. So you can actually see exactly the query that I'm using to build.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, hey, results. Okay, well, that's probably the thing. Like, I literally didn't know what was in the JSON before I started trying this. Like, I just was like, let's just see what will happen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, cool, there's results. And then it looks like a lot of things. Okay, that's too hard for me to read. So then I start doing... so that's too hard for me to read. So then I was like, okay. What if I just do something like result.results, and then I see like what that looks like? So we can just run this again. And it's like, okay, that was the list of results. So I might just want to look at the first one.
So you're doing your leader X here, right?
Yep.
Your leader X.
I'm doing leader X because it's calling this function here.
All right, and leader X was it finds the.
It runs the whole file.
The whole file, and then at the end you
That's just like calling Lua file percent. Is literally
all right.
all
Yep.
Oh, sorry, one based. I've been writing Go, obviously. I forgot that Lua is one based. Sorry,
what do you think about this? I don't want to kick off a whole thing here, but it's.
Oh yeah, we can talk about it.
I'm not afraid to talk about this.
It's very, very rarely annoying. Usually it's just something like that. Like, oh, I forgot that I need to say 1 or 0 at the beginning. I think there's like sometimes where one based is nicer, like depending on how you're thinking of like ranges.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know the history of like Lua, like that it was made in Brazil and they weren't allowed to import any other technology, so they made their own stuff up. And you're like, oh, so they just like didn't happen to be using C and decide that 0 makes sense for all arrays, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be 0, right? Like, and in Lua, it's kind of like more of an offset rather than like it's like, it's like, because Lua tables are both arrays and maps and anything else, or sets, or however you like want to access them. They can be all the different things. So it's like, I don't necessarily.
I have to say, my Achilles heel is off by 1 errors.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
It's a problem.
Yep.
And whenever I need to get the last element of a array or slice, or the second to last one, whatever. Like, it's always in my head every time I need to do this calculation, and I'm embarrassing myself here. But every time I need to do the calculation, and if I have a array of length 4, just putting 4 in there to get the last element would be easier than doing the mental calculation where you subtract 1 by another number.
Yeah, well, and that's so it's like for some things it's sort of like, oh, it actually like makes sense when you're writing the code that you want to go from this spot to this spot, where like kind of makes sense that it's 1 based. But so I think like if our conventions weren't that every language uses 0 based indexes, then you'd be like, oh, it's cool that like Lua does it for this case, and it like makes sense, and a lot of their APIs sort of look like simple because of that. You don't have to remember to do 1 and whatnot. But that's okay. It's like so it doesn't really bother me, except for occasionally when I do this, but usually I don't have to think about it at all. Because I'm like looping over an array or something like that, and the loop feels the same either way you're doing it. So
I like it. It's quirky in a way. Like if I was incredibly rich, I would just fund people to build their own programming languages where they come up with weird stuff.
Yeah.
And just like, oh yeah, you're doing 0 based indexing. I'll pay you a monthly thing so you can work on this, and then try to sneak it into the industry and make Other people go mad in comments. This is zero base is I don't know, 2-based indexing or something. This is
They're like,
madness.
it's 2's complement indexing, obviously. Like
Yes. Yes.
Man. So,
All right.
anyways, okay. So now that we remember to use one, it's emoji-based indexing. Now you're thinking,
Nice.
Stupak.
That's good.
What would be if we did emoji-based indexing? Like, it would be kind of fun if maybe the numbers from like 0 to like at least 7 would kind of be, you know, something like it goes from a sad face to a happy face. You know what I mean? Like, so when you're iterating through and you print off the indexes, it's like the guy's getting happier.
Isn't there like an end emoji where it says end?
Oh,
like just
the last index is always end.
It's end, yes. There you go. Or the stop sign or whatever. Like
Yeah,
stop after this. This is the last element.
you may go no further.
Yes. If you go past the end, you get back the ghost.
Yeah,
like,
it's just all ghosts
it's just,
forever.
It's just ghost. Yeah.
Now, this might not be the worst.
Good ideas.
This could be a good idea for like teaching kids how to program, like an elementary school kid, because they'll understand the emojis. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, when they join, the job market, somebody will go, "Who taught them to use emojis in programming?" And we'll be laughing, just like, yes. Put that ghost in there. Put the stop sign in there.
It's just a secret way to get the world to finally like understand how to use Unicode correctly. Is like
exactly.
all these kids are like coming out with like, well, my editor didn't support my emoji-based indexing correctly, so we had to fix it.
Nice.
Oh man. Okay, so anyway, we can do this. I run the file again. I can say what name I want, and so I say like, oh, I see that there's file, and then there's like too much stuff here for me to read, kind of. So then I might do something like vim dot table keys, so that I can just look at what the keys are.
Why do you have to call Vim dot table keys? Isn't this a Lua thing, table keys? And I thought Vim was all the old Vim world.
Ah, okay, great question. Great question about what is going on there. Yeah. We scripted that one. Thorsten obviously knows the answer, like we said before. But the reason, so Vim, just like Vim by itself, is basically our like standard library that we're shipping for people to have. So it contains not only like ways to interact with Neovim itself, like through vim.api or vim.fn, but it also contains other like helpful utilities that like are missing in Lua's standard lib, basically.
All right.
So we actually ship like help vim.table. We've got map, keys, count, extend. So there's like a bunch of little table utilities that you can have here.
Oh, I thought, isn't there another plugin that does? Isn't there something called all the Lua functions you were missing?
Oh, Plenary? Yeah. There's Plenary that but like Plenary does like more things, and it does them in sometimes like maybe more sort of intrusive or like I don't know how to say it super. Like, Plenary is also just a work in progress for what we're doing, so it's not like I would say that it does everything 100% correct yet. So like, for Plenary has like a path lib, and so it's very similar to like to Python Python 3's path lib. Like, you get back an object, you can do all these things on it. Opinionated, yeah, Plenary is also a bit more opinionated. Some of the things I do hope to eventually move from Plenary into Neovim Core, but it's kind of like a testing ground for me to play around with ideas and get feedback from people instead of like having it sit in a PR that no one's ever gonna try. You know what I mean?
So the distinction is that these function over here. Oh, yeah. Nice, this works. Yeah, these over here, they are like the core functions, and the other thing is more like a standard lib where you have utilities that are outside of the language. For file path and I don't know if there's network in there, but
Yep.
Cool. All right. Got it.
So these and like these will be there all the time. If it's on Vim, that like Neovim claims the name the namespace Vim. So we will put all of our like utilities and all the things that we think are like helpful for people from Neovim core into just the Vim global that exists everywhere, right? And some of them are like compiled functions, right? So some of them like we wrote in C and then exposed as Lua APIs or things like that, right? Or we are oh, I'm on the wrong screen. So if we looked at like Vim.lua here, and we looked at like stir. Oh no, the better place would be Executor C probably. Is this where we expose all these? I always forget where we put these now. One sec. Well, I gotta think about where this actually is. Where do we call this?
Side question: what's an Andy? I just saw in chat something mentioning Andy's.
I think they're just saying viewers. I don't know why they said Andy's today.
All right. Feels so out of touch right now.
That's okay. I didn't know that one either. So actually,
I should have asked that under an anonymous name in chat.
Right. Yeah. Right. So here's like nlua state init. So this is what we do when we build our Vim like table at some point. And so we like make a new table. That's the Vim table. This is in C, right inside of Neovim core.
Yeah.
And so like we make a new table, then we add. So this is like, oh, here's where we add API functions, which is like pretty cool because they're just literally like there's no RPC between them when you call API functions in from Lua. It's just actually calling the compiled C code. So then there's also like nlua stir comp here. So that's not the one I wanted to go to. If I go to here, then it's like, hey, this is just actually like C checking these strings using some of the same libraries that we're using inside of Neovim, right? So it's like it exposes you to both that speed and some of the like things that Lua has a very difficult time handling by itself, because I think it like one of Lua's goals, right, is that it can be embedded anywhere. And is this like, why am I getting a weird whatever?
The line.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ghost. I think it's a ghost.
Oh, it's because my the sun's shining behind me. That's okay. Like Lua's meant to be embedded anywhere, which like even inside of kernels and stuff like that, right? So its standard library has to be like very, 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 very small, because how are you going to provide like a date time library that works inside of a kernel platform independently or something like that, right? So those kind of things don't usually exist, but like Neovim already ships with a bunch of these things, right? Because we already have like datetime functions. So it's like, well, we don't need another library. We just need to expose the stuff that we already have inside of Neovim to Lua.
Oh, nice.
So this is like one of those reasons again where it's like really cool to use Lua versus like some other language, even that might like communicate well with Vim or whatever. Is Lua like it's so good at embedding with C projects that it's like, oh, we can just literally call the code, the same code that we would call here, we can call over here.
Nice.
In fact, you'll probably like this. I think this is in plenary path now. Do we have JIT here? Yeah.
So wait a second, side question.
Yeah,
where do you search? Like you always search in the correct directory. How do you do this? Like where?
Sure. Yeah. I've got a bunch of different leader or space F things here, which search different things. So I've got like FF, that's the like current like file I'm in. I've got FA is all of my installed plugins. FP is my personal plugins.
Wait a second.
Yep.
I have to say, I watched the telescope video. I watched the telescope video.
Prime, he watched it.
I loved it. Ask TJ, I wrote in our Slack channel, oh wow, because you showed me that I can use send to quick fix. And I love the quick fix list. And it was just, synergy. It was telescope and the quick fix list. Boom. But what I was asking here is, does he have bindings for different directories where he says these are common directories? I have one binding to, in searching in a dot file, searching and whatever. So I was wondering, is he in the current working directory or is this some other thing?
Yeah, so I have ones for tons of different stuff. I even have one just space FV for just searching in Neovim source. So like I'm literally just searching Neovim source code with that one. So because I often go back to Neovim source code, I added one like FS. I have a source graph folder that I have all of our source graph repos, right?
Yeah.
So I can just do space FS, and now I'm searching all the source graph things that I have like downloaded, which is pretty.
Show me that function and send it to me.
Okay. Well, the source graph one's really easy. It's just this is the only thing that matters. Just like Prime talked about in his video using current working directory. I just set the current working directory to what I want it to be. Okay, I'll paste it in the chat. A bunch of it doesn't necessarily super matter, but that's okay. Like a bunch of it's random stuff. It's just a configuration for how I want it to look. Yeah.
So I always switch into the projects directory. Yep. I have multiple instances.
Yep.
So if I were using this, but I'm in a subfolder of your home source graph.
Yep.
And then I open the file, then I'm in the wrong working directory.
Yes. Yeah. You are in the wrong working directory for that right now. Yeah.
But for looking up stuff, it's super handy.
Right. Usually I'm just like popping into that. If I wanted to, I would, and I wanted to keep them kind of separate, I might use something like TCD. You know TCD? That's tab current directory. So you can like change the current working directory just for your tab. So then I might like open it up in my tab, set the working directory, and then beep, do what I'm doing there. But honestly, usually if I have like serious things in two projects, I just open up a new kitty tab, and then I just switch back and forth between them. I mean, for you, I'm sure you just open up a new tmux session and do them as well.
Yeah.
What you could do is you could have this, when you're doing this find source graph thing, you could just like have it open up a new tmux session. Boom. You could have it open up a new tmux session.
While you were saying this, I had to say right here.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. So
this is just what is it like? Your relative line numbers are making me feel. What is it like 10 lines or 15 or something?
Yeah.
And then you have a shortcut. Use Telescope to search in my custom stuff, and then you could add like a callback.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. So and you could honestly,
whether I'm in
this stuff doesn't even matter. Like this is really all that it is. That stuff was just like, I like it to look this particular way for when I'm finding files. But it doesn't like, that's just layout configuration stuff. It doesn't have to be. If you wanted to do something, you could do attach mappings function that takes prompt buff number. The Prime goes over this in his video too. Shout out to Prime. I think, hey Prime, if you type !Prime telescope, I think it links to that video, hopefully. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. But you could just do something like this, where you could map in insert mode. You could say like, I don't know, maybe you just want to override enter for this case. So then it just gets past the Lua function directly, which is pretty cool. So you can write the function that you want to get executed directly, right? So then you could just do something like, I think it's os.system tmux-new pane. I have no idea how to use tmux. Something here, %s.
Something like this, yeah.
And okay, sweet, you're all done. Like,
and then you can pass it like start Vim in a new pane or in a new window.
Yep. Yeah, you could map each of the different ones into Prime. I know I'm terrible at tmux. Okay, I just know panes are a word in tmux. Okay, so that's why I said new pane. But you could map, enter as open in a new tmux window, or you could do like you could do like alt enter or something like that if your terminal supports getting.
And that is, Telescope would not have a problem that it's. Does the command need to exit, or well, if you do OS system, it will open new pane. It would exit, right? Like tmux.
Yeah. So I would You could do like job start or some like asynchronous thing. It doesn't actually have to be like the blocking version
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it. Because you can just call whatever you want. I was just giving like an example, and then you would want to do something like actions.close. That
Yes, yeah,
makes
yeah,
this thing close down, and then you'd want to do return true here at the end to say make all the rest of my mappings. Blah blah blah. That stuff all sort of is documented. But yeah, you could totally do that. It would be super easy to do. That's like literally the whole. Like that's the whole reason of why Telescope is built like in this configurable way. Is it's just write Lua functions. Just
Jesus,
write
I need this.
just write Lua functions. You know what I mean?
And, and you could, I mean, I'm not saying you should write this out here, but
Yeah.
you could then detect like, oh, is the search result, is it in the working directory that I'm already in?
Yep.
Or if not, then pop out, create a new window in Gmux and start a new Vim.
I'm about to blow your mind with this one.
Go
So
ahead.
actions.select default is like the normal one when you press enter, right?
Yes.
We have this concept called replace if function and then you can do another function and like this.
All right.
This function here, if it returns true, then it will run this function. So you can check like, let's say you do local entry is for right now, we'll just make it a table, right? But you would actually get the table and whatnot. You can say, if and, is in current working directory, entry. Then you could just do like return not
is
in current or in CWD entry, something like this, right? Then you'd run okay, do tmux. But if this returns false, then it will run the normal select default. So if you press enter, it handles it automatically for you.
So the replace means replace the default action. It doesn't mean replace the string or whatever. It means replace the default action.
Yeah, because this is on the action itself. So this will be replace if this, so that just runs this code here. If it returns true, then run this function. So you don't even have to do anything super crazy. You just say, oh, hey, we're going to do this. And then if it's true, boom, now it would run it in tmux. So you don't even have to remember to like keep all of these other things and keep that stack of like what it's supposed to do, etc. You can just actually do it just this way. In fact, hey, Connie, you're in chat. I saw. Big shout out to Connie, one of Telescope's biggest contributors. We implemented that you could do action set dot select, right? Replace if. I'm pretty sure we did. Did we do that?
Hey.
Yeah.
We could have this with the source graph search, right? Where you search multiple repositories, and if it's in a different repository that you're not in, then it could say, I'm sure you have some functions for this. Hey, this repository is not on diskit. Do you want to clone it? Or open the link on source graph or something.
Yeah, exactly.
This would be so cool.
So action set actually is the thing that all of the different selects are from, and Connie just confirmed that we did this. So like you could actually action set is this concept of like some actions are all related. For example, like split, vertical split, tab edit or edit. They're all just like editing the file but in a different window. So they all call action sets. So you can actually override the underlying code and not have to override like 8 different key mappings. So you could basically make it so that like, hey, open this in a split, like open it like, because you can do this where you do like Control V and it splits the window, right? In Telescope. You could replace that action with this, and then you could like do different kinds of tmux openings based on what kind of split you asked for, horizontal, tab, etc. So you could do like tons of really cool stuff there as well. You know what I mean? It's like so you could do that like all here. And it's all the like I can't say it enough because this is the part like that I really like about Telescope, not to toot my own horn, but there's just like all Lua functions, right? So you don't have to like think about passing something standard in, standard out, getting it back, reparsing it, making sure you keep all the metadata or like the state of your editor or like passing that in. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just like can ask it responsively as you iterate through each step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Yeah. So anyways, that's how you could do that. We could play around with that. Or you can message me on Slack and whatnot for it. But that's how I have all the different
Nice.
searches, and I just have some mnemonics for ones that I try and remember them. Space FV for me is find. Neovim space FS is source graph.
Yeah.
Peach guy, I ready for one-on-one telescope shooting. Next, yeah, we could talk about it.
I actually saw in the telescope video. I saw the searching in the dot files or in the Vim config or something, and I'm gonna steal that too.
Yeah, nice.
Like I need to set up some more shortcuts.
Oh, right. We were talking about the Lua JIT aspects and why it's pretty sweet, and the FFI. So one thing that I don't necessarily recommend that you do, but it's sweet that it's possible to do. Some functions would be better than others. So we did this thing in telescope path, or in plenary's path module, for shortening a path, which is the thing that you saw where it takes the path and every time it sees a slash, it'll just make it one letter long and whatnot. We already had that function inside of Vim, echo path shorten, I think it is, hello world asdf.lua, right? It changes to hw asdf.lua, so that already existed, but we couldn't call vim.fn.path shorten because we were in some tight Lua loops. Do you know? I get this actual question a lot, so you might not be familiar. Do you have you run into the case where it says hey, you can't use vim.fn in tight loop, in Lua tight loops? Have you had that yet or no?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
So
I'm.
Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, I don't want to stop you again, but I'm looking at these 3 lines here and I'm wondering syntactically what's going on. So.
Oh yeah, we'll show you that too.
Wait a second. So this is Lua code where you pass a multi-line string.
Yeah.
To a Lua function, but the multi-line string is C code, and now this is speculation. It's highlighted because you use tree sitter.
Oh, nice guess, indeed. 100% correct. 100% correct there. Yeah. So, I think I accidentally did this. There we go. Those should be on 2 different lines.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wrote so tree sitter has the concept of injections. And injections are basically where you can make a tree of other languages. So you can write a query that goes, let's go down back to CDEF area here. And
this is what tree sitter sees.
This is what tree sitter sees. Yeah, let me go down to where we actually see the CDEF part. I wish there was a way to move back and forth between these easily, but as far as I know, maybe someone in chat knows. Okay, here we go. So I wrote basically a thing that looks like this, and it says, hey, look for a function call. So you could do this. This is pretty sweet. This is tree sitter playground. See how now it highlights CDEF or it highlights all these function calls. These are all function calls.
What?
Right? So this is the query that we're running against tree sitter. Do you know about tree sitter queries? I don't know if you know or not.
Not really. I thought it's basically you can query parts of the parse tree or the AST or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In that case.
Yep. So it provides basically a scheme, scheme as in the Lisp dialect.
Yeah.
Query syntax that you can ask the tree for information. And this is how all the highlighting is done. We just provide query files that define certain named nodes, and those named nodes mapped to highlights that we apply. So this allows you to write your own highlight scheme or to apply additional highlights based on semantic information, which is what we do here and how I get this. So it's okay, so you could start with okay, here's a function call. Yeah, I've highlighted all the function calls. Well, that's obviously not exactly what I want. I want ones that have like a prefix, which are an identifier. So, hey, look, now it doesn't highlight this anonymous one anymore. It only highlights ones that have identifiers. So then we could do something like this, where we capture this identifier with, like, we can just call it identifier. We can put this inside of a bigger query here, and we could say, hey, I only want them if it equals at identifier and cdef. Now what do we get? Hey, look, we only are matching function calls that have cdef.
Oh, okay.
And so then you could say, well, you could call cdef possibly without a like string. Like you could call it like ffi.cdef my code. You're like, okay, cool, sure. But that's like kind of annoying. You wouldn't want to highlight like my code as C things, right? Yep.
What's the add? The add binds the thing that you found to the name.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They're just called named nodes or something like that in TreeSitter.
So you're looking for a function call, and function call is like a primitive that this provides. We say look for function call.
Yeah, it's because it's this node in the tree, so it literally just matches these nodes. See how this one says identifier?
Yeah, and then you say, in my query, bind this to identifier.
Yep.
To func, and then pull out the identifier and bind it to identifier, and then you say, but only if identifier equals cdef.
Right, and then we can even do this as well, where we could say args, and I only want them to be string arguments. And now we end up, with the case that we were looking for, which is just this one's highlighted and not this one. See how, because this one's a string arg and this one's not.
Yes.
So,
nice.
So this is why I think we should use TreeSitter at work. We'll talk about it later.
Nice.
Because this would result in a lot better highlighting and a lot better other things that we could do in web. Like we could do, this is expand selection. It does it with TreeSitter. So I'm just pressing Alt W is expand selection. It does that semantically. So we could like add select expansion for like free in web. So I have lots of ideas about that, but we can chat about that later. And the cool thing is we could reuse or share work with Neovim TreeSitter and some of the other TreeSitter things. Like we don't have to do it all ourselves, because if we're helping and they're helping, I think it's a good, nice symbiotic relationship. But anyways, to get back to your original question, so I defined basically an injection query that does this, and then I just say what language I want it to be. It doesn't really matter the syntax, but it's possible to do, and so that's how I get C highlighting here.
Oh, and that's how you did the highlighting SQL queries inside Go.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep, that's the one. So for that one, I did basically that the identifier needs to contain capital query, basically, because that's what we were doing. Every place I could find was we wrote the word query. That was how I sort of did like a heuristic to not always try and make things SQL. You know what I'm saying? Like instead of always trying to do it SQL, it looks for words that are a constant declaration that have the word query inside of the variable name and are a multi-line literal string afterwards, which is like seemed like every place that I had seen that we did SQL highlighting. So yeah, but I have to write a SQL grammar first because apparently one doesn't exist. I'm like kind of far on it, but that's okay.
So can you use this from the command line to basically say, use TreeSitter to parse these files and give me the locations of these, let's say the beginning and end line and column of.
Even better is they have bindings in a bunch of languages that let you do this like a lot easier. So like they have a really good Rust binding that I was playing around with. That is what I would say, because in fact, like they have TreeSitter Playground on their website, which is just running the WASM. So we could compile to WASM, have it run in the browser, and it doesn't need to send stuff back and forth. Like we don't even have to hit the server. We just send the WASM file and boom, highlighting. No requests.
And do they do they have like utilities to do like search and replace, for example?
Um, there is some stuff going on in that space. One really interesting one that I saw a while ago. Let me I'll show you the architects.
I mean, with what we have here, it would basically be glue code, I guess, where you pull
Right.
out the stuff you want to change, and then you just need to.
So
Change.
this is from a while ago. I don't know how much Vig has worked on this, but there was this cool idea. He's doing architects at the bottom, and then he puts in
Yeah.
a tree sitter query with the thing that he wants to substitute, right? So he's doing like identifier. He matches that to app thing, and then he's
Yeah.
gonna say, okay, I only want identifiers that for thing that equal prefix or prefy
Yeah.
or whatever he's gonna type here. And then he does a slash, so it's like regex, right? And he made some other thing, and he then applies that search to the buffer, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
So there's definitely something there. Oh, someone was wondering how do we bind this to Lua or Vim? Can you expand what you mean, Ashburn? Like we wrote Lua bindings. By we, I mostly mean Beefriedel and Vigu, and I reviewed a lot of code. But I didn't really write anything. So, well, that's not entirely true, but that's okay. Beefriedel though is the mastermind there for sure. So yeah. So anyways, that's how I get this cool highlighting here. The semantically, basically, right? It was like kind of semantically, mostly. So what was cool though is I defined short and dir, which is a function in Neovim's code base. There's a like right, so it's a C function. It's compiled. It's in the header file. Lua can find it because we can like the Lua that's here is with the Neovim one, right? So they're like together. So I'm like, hey, Lua JIT FFI, can you like look up these things for me? And it's like, sure, I can find those. So then I convert a Lua string into a C string, which is what you do here, I guess. I'm not like super expert on this, but this works. So then I copy the string into the FFI so that I can run stuff, and then it's just you can just do FFI.C.shortendir. So I just called this function that's in C right here, right? This is you can actually call that directly from Lua, which is like really crazy. Really crazy.
This is what's going on here is impressive. That you basically have this function that returns two other functions, and depending on whether JIT is enabled, it creates a binding in C, and then that's impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool concept too because it just does the FFI def parts once, right? Because it just binds.
Yeah,
this function gets called in line, right? So then it just checks this once, like at startup, basically, and that's like, oh yeah, you've got Lua JIT. Cool, we'll do the JIT version. Otherwise, sorry, you're just not getting shortened. We actually ended up doing some other stuff eventually that allows this to be not like that, but that's okay. Yeah.
So where were we before I? Sorry,
I don't even know.
I don't know. We ended up in this.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Chad, do you guys have any questions or things you want to say about this quick while we're here? We're just kind of bouncing around all over the place, so we're just having fun.
Somebody's gonna say, "Thorsten, stop interrupting."
No, I think they like the questions.
I have more.
Oh, well, what's another question?
I don't have one ready
now. Oh, you'll probably think it's cool as well, Thorsten. Me and Connie have been working on this thing where let me show an example. So in Telescope, I'm working on getting more documentation. So we started. Yeah.
Just for the record, if it starts with a cow in ASCII, I think it's gonna be cool, right? Because you said you're probably gonna think it's cool. Yes, there was a cow in ASCII. I'm gonna think it's cool.
Yeah. So this is how we like set some default configuration values, and we started to add additional like meta information about them, just like what kind of stuff you should be able to expect about text style things. So this is just like in Lua, right? This is like a string. We're just writing this string in here. Soon I will assert that it has to have a definition. because well, we haven't added all of them. That's okay. So we'll be able to like assert that no telescope default, like every telescope default must have a like a description, right? That is like describes the thing. So then if you look at like help telescope.setup, you might notice, wait a second, entry prefix in front of each result entry, current selection not included, default. How did we get this from here to there? So how did we do that?
You have dynamically generated Vim help, basically.
Yeah. So step 1, write a Lua tree sitter grammar that understands documentation. I needed this for a lot of different things. And in fact, my long-term goal is we ship this tree sitter grammar into Neovim core. So out of the box, you have great highlighting. We should be able to provide some basic completion. We have, all these sorts of things. They just like magically pop out immediately when you open up Lua. Oh, right. Began mentions, actually Began step 0 was dream it. So step 0, dream it. Step 1, Lua tree sitter grammar. Okay.
Nice.
So it understands like all of these things. Like it knows what briefs are. So if I do like TS playground toggle again, you'll see it like literally knows that documentation brief. Like I'm writing documentation brief. All of this is inside of the brief. Okay. So that's pretty cool because now it starts to understand what's going on there. It even knows things like, hey, this is a parameter documentation. And then here's where things get kind of wild. We have ME eval, which is this concept that I made up. This is an eval means as the documentation generator goes over these things to generate, it takes the stuff that's right here and evaluates that Lua code so that you can dynamically generate and fill in the documentation as you go.
So you build like a little macro system for your documentation? That's
yeah.
Man, you know what I'm thinking? I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is the power that Lisp programmers describe that you get by, code as data and data as code.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Except that you have Lua and you have tree sitter. So now for you, it's easy to say, pull this stuff out of this other thing. When, Lisp or in Scheme, you would have to go through Lisp, match symbols and whatever.
Right.
So this is super impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, there maybe should be warning signs around putting eval in documentation. But that being said, it is powerful.
Yeah.
Should you do it at home? Maybe.
Right.
But it is cool.
One bonus part that's cool is you might notice that this is highlighted like it's code because I injected Lua's tree sitter grammar back into itself to highlight this area as a table constructor. So it like literally knows that if I did that, it knows that this is now a function and whatnot. So it's very, very cool. So now this, it'll require this and load it up and then run that code. And you can see like this format setup keys actually does stuff like it gets this big table of results. It formats all of them and then it returns this big table. And then DocGen handles formatting those into Vim help docs.
What happens if you put an eval in the docstring format setup keys?
It won't do anything. It'll just it doesn't recursively evaluate. At least not yet.
Nice.
Yeah. It just like it only takes the first pass. It finds out what's there, and then it has generators based on those, and it doesn't like recursively evaluate the outputs. It'll just this string to new string basically is what it does. Probably good.
I had some other questions. Can you jump back? I don't know where we were before we dove into this. Before the docs, basically.
When we were looking at the FFI CDEF, or when we were looking...
No, before that. What did we do before this?
Like we were talking about Vim, just like the global Vim, and then we started talking about how we integrated... Before that, or...
Nah, I think... I don't know. What did we want to do? Like, I had some question, but I might... If we keep on doing what we did, then I might remember it again.
Okay,
Let's
so we were playing around with a while ago. We were in the
this shorten, and you were explaining like
Yep.
how Vim dot table.
Yep, right.
What was it?
Vim
Like
dot
set
like
keys or
table
something?
keys and Vim dot
Yep,
table
yep.
map. Yep.
That's where we started.
Yep. So yeah, so we were just playing around with that. I was showing some cool tree sitter stuff. It's cool that you can do this highlighting. Yeah, so eventually we were back just in here, and we were looking at the results that we were getting back from SourceGraph. That was, I think, the top of our stack, if I recall. Just a few.
All the way down, side detour to tree sitter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Before we move back on into this, did anyone have like any questions in chat or anything they wanted to know or anything that they were thinking like, hey, what were you guys talking about there? Otherwise we'll move back. We'll move back and we'll see if we can play around with what's going on here. How I would like to know how you have step 0 in a base 1 language. It's simple. Watch this. You can do this. Lua print. Look at this. 0 equals hello. 1. Whoops. 1.
F1 would also work.
Equals. Yeah, right. World. See, it found it, kind of. World and hello. Vim.inspect puts these in, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 numeric indexes, it tries to put it like an array. But I can assure you, it goes 0, 1 there. Cursed. So it's Lua tables can do anything you want. F1 is because he isn't using Kinesis advantage too. Ergodox, my fingers are too weak. My fingers are too weak, Prime. I'm sorry.
Except your thumbs.
My thumbs are jacked, obviously, but the rest of my fingers are just paltry fingers.
Yeah.
Ergodox. Do I say it funny, Prime? Are you making fun of me? I'll admit my Midwest accent is sometimes very wrong. Even Kayleen laughs at me, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, what was it? Like a couple weeks ago, I said plague instead of plague, and she just like thought that was the world's funniest thing. So, anyways, whatever. Okay, we'll keep moving.
So we have results, which is a JSON array of results.
Yeah, which we've just converted into like a Lua table using vim.json decode. So it's like, okay, well, we're all set there. We've got the JSON into Lua now. So we can run this. We can run it. Actually, let me change this to be. I'm just gonna change this to be, instead of prompting me right now, we're just gonna say nlua stir like this, so that I don't have to type that every time. Okay. Nice. So it says, hey, here's the keys: repository, type name, file, and line matches. I'm like, okay, cool, nice. cool. Maybe I want to explore those. Maybe I don't. What we could do as well is, this is kind of a fun thing to do as well. Like, so maybe I make a new buffer here. I check out what the current buffer is, and then get current buff 697. Okay, so we're like buff number 697. Then I might do something like this: vim.api.nvim buff set lines, buff number 0, -1, false, result.results. Well, this might not work. This probably won't work because they're going to be like an array of strings. We could do vim.inspect result.results, and then we can split this on new lines. Vim.split. Yeah. We'll see if this works. I don't actually know.
So instead of printing stuff, you're putting it into a separate buffer.
Yeah, so now I can just poke around in here if I want.
It's like file type
content. You're like, okay, this is just, there is text here. Right, I don't actually want to look at it. Content is just like the whole file. I found that out eventually.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like, oh, cool. Look, hey, here's I've got one result. I've got one like result here in results, and then it looks like, okay, we've got a repository info. That's the repository info that I want. Now I can sort of poke around in here as I desire to figure out what's going on there. So that's like one thing that I like doing is I just like putting stuff back inside buffers because it's like I can move around really quick in buffers. I already know how to do them.
That's so impressive, man.
So that's another pretty fun one that I do quite a bit, especially for like inspecting new data structures. I think for this case, if I was being more serious about it, I probably would try and use a tool like JQ or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes I just like having it in here, and I like that I can do stuff like, oh, I'm going to search for line matches. I'll copy this so that I can go put it over here so I know what the actual key name is. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to be able to have those keys.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the keys are like, oh, it's 12 characters long, and I didn't know that we were doing snake case or something, or I messed up the case of one of them. And that's kind of an annoying situation. Yeah.
So what I often want to do is I have a command that tests what I'm working on. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now I have new terms, so I have like these cool bindings, and it runs in a split window, and I can see the output.
Yep.
Then the output might sometimes be JSON, right?
Yep.
So you redefine your command so it pipes to JQ or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you were to do this, and I would tell you, but can you take the output and put it in a separate buffer?
Mm-hmm.
How would you do this? How would you say, I want a key binding right now so I can run this thing and put the result into a buffer that I have and set the file type or something?
Yeah, so if I was it depends if I want it to run again when I open Neovim up again, or if I'm like just iterating on one thing at
just
a time.
Iterating on stuff, yeah.
Because then I really like to do this pattern where I just pick a buff number that I'm gonna do, and then I just say that that's my buffer. I add this in the Lua like file that I have, and then I can just do stuff here. I can do something like vim.api.nvim buff set option, right? And you could just do buff number, file type, JSON, for example, like this.
Right,
like, okay, so now it's JSON. Sweet. I can do whatever I want to the results here first, right? Like I can parse them. I could just get particular keys or like particular parts of the array. I could try and diff them. You know, like it obviously depends on what you're trying to like work towards getting there, but yeah.
And you would start by just opening your, I don't know, scratchpad.lua file, put a function in there with the key binding that we saw earlier, where you had like no remap, and you call this function, reload, and call this function, and you can hack together stuff basically.
So it's almost like it's kind of like in some ways like a delayed REPL. Like I sometimes find REPLs are like a little hard to work with because I don't have like I don't want pressing enter to like send it, or I don't like I want to like write code, you know what I mean? And then like so I instead I just kind of like try and find ways to get the like feedback and response from the REPL without like actually being inside one. And like, well, if I'm writing Neovim Lua plugins, I have like the best like I'm just writing Lua and I can do Lua inside of Neovim. Before I forget, if you're on a pretty recent Neovim nightly version, you can start doing things like this. Vim.api.nvim, hit tab. We complete globals. So if you do something like you save something as a global, for example, watch this. Lua API equals vim.api. Okay, right? So that's like, this is not that helpful of a map, right? Now I can just Lua API dot. It checks what the keys are inside of that global. So you can like, if you saved, we could totally, okay. Ready for this? Ready for this? We can do this. Result equals result dot results, right? Results.
Right.
Result dot results. Nope.
I now remember what I wanted to ask you, but I'll write a note or something.
Yeah. So you could do result dot. Maybe this won't work. Oh shoot, because it's a list of things. Oops, one. Yeah. Okay. We need to do like one here. Let's do that. Result dot. Aha!
What?
File dot path.
Oh my god! This is what. Am I allowed to say this word? Like, this is what emails people have with Lisp, except, you know,
Yeah.
nice.
Boom. So it's like that. We just saved that in there. The completion there is pretty good, but it's not like it's not 100% magic. It's not quite as good because we're trying not to evaluate any code really when we're only reading code. When we do this completion, you could probably get better completion by actually evaluating them, but we don't do that exactly. This is built into Neovim. I think someone asked what completion are you using. Just literally type Lua and then start pressing tab, and you can see like here's all the globals.
Doesn't Telescope also have like a thing for exploring the commands or Lua API or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is some stuff there for like doing help tags and stuff like that.
All right. So
yeah,
just one comment on this. Like the reason why I asked is what I do in Vim, and this has been possible for a long time, is colon, exclamation mark, and then you run a shell command, and then it gives you the output. And if you say colon R and then the exclamation mark, it reads the output of that command into your buffer. So you can have like simple bindings where you just run this in a buffer, and then it gives you the output of the command in the buffer. So I often do this to kind of, when I'm on the command line, I have a long command, like a script, then I realize at the end of the line, this is too long. So I open the command in Vim, and then I read other commands output into Vim and put it in the command or something, and then execute it. But the limit, of course, is that you cannot route it to a different buffer or something. It's always the current buffer, and you cannot easily bind this to put other stuff in there. And what you just said, that split on lines or whatever. So doing this programmatically is super nice.
The one thing probably my favorite feature for Plenary that I use all the time is Plenary's jobs, which is a wrapper around vim.loop.spawn, which is the like libuv thing that's integrated inside of Neovim that spawns an external job, right? There's is that there's a couple things that are pretty cool about it. Well, one, it's like all Lua, so you can write things really quickly, but it has on standard out as a function, and basically you have like error and line. So you get each line split, so you can process the lines as you go if you want. So if you wanted to run a job asynchronously and fill a buffer, you would just do like, I think for this, if you were filling a buffer, you'd probably have to do vim.schedule_wrap here, which pretty much, so as a quick side note for this, we just touched on it earlier. Lua can execute at times that is unsafe to affect Neovim's global state. So, because like it's executing at times that VimScript can't execute, basically, right? Because we have like a separate Lua interpreter. We're running things in event loops. We're allowing things to process while we're awaiting other things, basically, in the event loop. So vim.schedule_wrap pretty much just takes a function and says, hey, run this function when it's safe to like affect Neovim's global state. So that's why vim.fn, for example, you can't call it in some places because like it's not safe to run just VimScript. It's like not safe to run. We don't know what's going to happen. And in fact, if you, for more reading about this, you can check out help API fast, which is basically like, hey, some functions can be run even in those Lua tight loops, like reading from global state. Sure, seems good. But updating lines, not good, because we might not be in a place that it's acceptable to like update lines or delete buffers. So that's why you might have to do this. But then you could just do something like vim.api.nvim buff set lines, right? And you have some buff number that maybe you saved from earlier, or maybe you set like test buff number, some global buff number. You can append it, and you can just do line like this. So this just says, hey, please put at the last line, insert a new line of this text, so then you can fill it up on the side. This is pretty much how I do the green light thing. I was showing you that before, right?
Where you highlight go test out.
Yeah, so go test. Where do I actually have job in here? So like, I just have this thing on standard out that says, hey, handle this line as we go. So handle line basically just checks the different results from the go test stuff. We'll sometimes add test case or insert messages or show the output, and it just drops them all into that side little buffer as I go. And this one's cool. It does other stuff as well. Like I showed you how it can open and expand the things because it uses like X marks to keep track of which test is associated with which thing and all this kind of stuff, which makes it a fun little kind of interactive menu, and you can do like highlights and whatnot. But that's one thing that I really like about like this job API is then you can script it, and if you just wanted it to be synchronous, then you can just call :sync basically on the job to run it. Like if it's going to be pretty short and it's only going to take 200 milliseconds, like okay, just call sync, and then it sends you back a table of the lines. It just sends you back each line as its own entry in a table, so you could iterate over the lines, because in shell world, lines are usually important, so I split them for you and make sure that we handle that, even though like the chunk of standard out that you get might not be to the end of the line, right? You might get 3.5 lines, and then the other half. It's pretty annoying to like handle that yourself every time. This handles all of that for you and manages that and blah blah, all those kind of things.
So could you for example add lines to the quick fix list in here, or would this fall under this? We can't do this. Okay. You can add on every line. I just look, is the line like contains error message, whatever. I take the file and I'll put it in quick fix.
Yep, exactly right. As long as you put vim.schedule wrap, you can call anything inside of it. Vim.schedule wrap handles it takes a function and returns a new function that can be called anytime, and it just schedules the execution for when it's okay to be run inside of Neovim. Does that make sense?
That's cool.
Yeah, so you could totally do vim.api.end, vim.fn.set qf list, whatever you need to put inside here. Boom. You can do the Lua processing, you can check regex, you can do whatever you need to do to make sure that this is the line that you actually want to insert into the quick fix list. And then you can do that asynchronously, right? It's just like as it comes in. So if you have 1,000 Go tests that you're running integration, and you're just gonna run it and see if any of them pass while you're working, you're like, start this up on standard out. Oh, we got one that failed. Pop it into the quick fix list and stop the execution or something like that. Totally do that.
So I need to ask the question because I hope otherwise I forget. A huge ingredient here is the language server support, right? So how do you get your language server or the Lua language server to work with all of your files and your different NVIM stuff?
Yeah, so do I have one that I have, sorry, this is blinding right now. I have this is somewhat of a helper. I don't know that you necessarily need to use this to get it to work, but there's some Neko Lua is the language server. There we go. See, it's supposed to be a dark tab. Okay, Asborn, I know that everyone wants to see dark tabs when I open it. I don't know why Firefox doesn't do it on the first time I open it. Anyway, some Neko Lua language server. This is the language server that I use. It's incredibly impressive in how much stuff it can figure out about Lua. Like, incredibly impressive. Okay. One thing to note is occasionally it's just like, whoops, I'm taking up all your CPU.
That's fair.
It's kind of like a general language server problem, right? But this one definitely has that issue. So it's like, so that just as like a note, that sometimes happens with this language server. But I would say they've been working on it, and they're making it like quite a bit better in that regard, and it tries not to absolutely blow up your PC.
Yeah.
But what the bits that are kind of like interesting, if you didn't want to use this plugin, which is fine.
Your plugin is a wrapper that installs it, right? Or
it installs and configures it to some extent.
Then I need this.
Yeah, because what it does is it does some things like it says, like I hate that it tells me that I have trailing space. I'm like, yes, I know. Like, that's okay. I'll take care of that later. But it, like, you can add globals so you don't get like annoying things about like, hey.
Oh yeah.
Why, like, I know Vim's a global. Yes. Or like I'm writing busted tests. Hey, yes, I know all of those are globals. They're supposed to be. And there's some little tricks in here, particularly with this library concept that works sometimes and not other times. I haven't figured out exactly why it works sometimes and why it doesn't other times. But this library kind of looks up all the places in your runtime path for
Oh,
Neovim,
nice.
finds the Lua ones, checks if they're directories, and then adds those to the result so that it can do some tricks with basically like telling some Nako like, yo, there's some stuff here that that you might be interested in analyzing, basically.
So I can basically create a new thing in my Neovim config directory, and it picks up on it, and with your wrapper, and I don't have to.
At least
Okay.
some of the time. It feels like, one release of some Nako it does, the next one I'm not confident that it does. I don't, but it at least like gives you some of the completions, and it definitely gives you the one thing that I'm pretty sure that it does is like it can give you completions on functions that you've already called somewhere, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
like, which
okay.
is like a big improvement, because it'll do like vim.api, start typing nvim underscore, and it's like, oh, I know you've done nvim buff set lines before. Like, okay, even if that's in a different file. So like, can definitely do that. And then like the other nice thing is it'll tell you like when you're not using local variables, or when you're when you're shadow scoping or things like that like aren't errors in Lua, but they're pretty much always errors. Because you actually don't wanna do that. And it provides like completion for a lot of like Lua built-in things as well. Like if you did something like debug dot, like these are all actual, like this is real Lua things, so it tells you what's inside of this table, right? Or if you did like package dot, it tells you the things that are inside of package. Those are real things.
Why do your tooltips look much nicer than my tooltips? Like you have syntax highlighting in them.
I don't know.
In Rust Analyzer or in Go Please. Is this like a language server specific thing?
I don't know. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah, we can play around with that later. One thing is I changed my default like background one so that it looks better for sure, because it's like I like this darker color one.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Anyways.
All right. Yeah.
I am using some things inside of LSP Saga Rocker, but not all of them. I sort of like co-opted a few parts of LSP Saga because I didn't like everything about it. Like I prefer this actually over LSP Saga's diagnostics.
What is LSP Saga? It's a great band name, but what is it?
It's a wrapper around built-in LSP. So
okay, all right.
LSP Saga. It's a very cool plugin. Very cool plugin. It just literally is like it like very much proves the point of what we wanted to like do with built-in LSP, which is that hey, it's a framework for doing LSP things. If you want to do something differently, just write the code that builds on top of it. So like it does, he's got cool stuff for like doing definitions and references. Would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you compare that with web UI? We'll talk about that later. Like his hover I think is quite nice, but I had some problems with it for me. But like it does more highlighting, more like pretty things like that. So it's just like it's really cool because it's just is built on top of built-in LSP. So like every improvement we make to built-in LSP, this plugin basically gets it for free. Right, which is really awesome, and it feels like really like that's cool. We like are on the right track in Neovim core that this is possible to do. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Nice.
So so there's that. So I have that installed, but I don't use it all the time. I have some parts of it I liked and some parts I didn't like that much. So I kept some and deleted others.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody asked how long you're on today. I don't know, but I have 15 minutes left or so.
Yeah, we did run something from Sourcegraph though, so I think that's like farther than I thought we were gonna get to.
I have basically a lot of my questions have been answered. I now need to get into the Lua stuff, and I need to set up my key bindings to execute stuff, and I need to
Yeah.
write more Lua functions, and I need to set up shortcuts to search with telescope and other stuff, and I need to write that function that opens things in a new Tmux window.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
So
can
that's
we
my
can
homework.
play around with that. It would be pretty fun, I think. I think like you could probably publish like extension basically for Telescope that exposes ways to open things in Tmux. There and maybe there is one actually, I don't even know. But like it totally is within the concept of how Telescope should work, that you should just be able to like, oh, I wanted to open this one in Tmux. Boom. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have like in Tmux you have this concept of sessions and windows, and they even have like a selector now. So you could build a telescope thing that allows you to select which Tmux session to jump to.
I think someone was working on that at one point. I don't know. I'd have to look again. I didn't follow it very closely because I'm not a Tmuxer. So
that would be the final turning this inside out, where like yes, Vim is running inside Tmux, but you know what? I'm actually good. Like, how do we explain this to others? Where people go, what I mean? Like this.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, why do you use, not Emacs or not an IDE? It's like, no, I want my terminal to be my IDE, but then you now have your editor, and now you can talk from inside the editor to outside.
Yeah.
So that would be the next step.
Yeah, I think because I've been having a lot of fun just like figuring out how I can add more things inside. For me, it's also like nice because I just play around with finding areas that we're like short in the Neovim API. I'm like, oh, we should, like, that would be a useful thing. Like, we should just add that. So it's like been a very fun, like, iterative, like, dogfooding experience for me to like find out that we need to like add these things or do this or whatever.
Yeah,
it's been very fun that way. Yeah. Yeah.
What do we want to do? Should we do something like for 50 minutes? What should we do?
I don't know. Anything? Let me think. Was there another thing that I wanted to show you for doing Lua dev stuff? The package reloading thing I think is really good. We chatted a little bit about like plenary jobs, which I think are like a really helpful way to do like the scripting of other aspects of things. We could chat really quick about Lua testing, I guess would be fine.
Yeah, let's go.
So we're using this in Telescope right now. We have it in some other things too. So we ship inside of Plenary, the like everything plugin. Plenary bust. We oh, that's the wrong one. Plenary busting. We ship what is sort of effectively a smaller version of Busted. Busted is a Lua testing framework. It looks just like Jest, basically. Like it's got describe. Well, it looks just like
the RSpec Jest thing. Yeah.
So it's like describe, and then you can say it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What we did though is we implemented like the simple cases, and we'll probably implement some more as we go on. But actually what this does is this fires up another Neovim instance and communicates with that Neovim instance to pipe the results back and forth, basically, so that you run your tests in a separate environment with access to all of the things like all of the like Vim APIs. You can do things with the UI. You can test that the UI resulted in you going in certain places. And so you can do this, which is, hey, I just ran this file in another Neovim instance, and I can pop up and I can see what the success and failures are of each of these. And in this case, they all passed, which is good.
Wait, what? What happened? What was in the pop-up? In the pop-up is another Vim instance.
A pop-up. This part here is actually not another Vim instance. It's just this same. And so created a child Envim instance that's headless, and we communicate with that instance over standard in, standard out. So we're saying, hey, that instance, please run this test, and it says okie doke, and here's my standard in, standard out here's basically like the results as we go, and so it pipes those back over to the parent instance, and so this is just like a regular buffer, like we can do this. It has like highlighting and stuff too through a different. It just like does the terminal escape sequences and stuff, whatnot.
And you're running this in CI then?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're running it in CI. Yeah.
I feel like this is opening maybe the gates of hell if like people start scripting with Neovim.
For example, we actually do some pretty complicated items. This literally runs Telescope in CI and simulates typing in one character at a time, readme.md, and then we can say some things like, after we've typed this, what should the prompt and the result look like, and what should the file be that we call on close, and then we can pass configuration to it. So this.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
How does it do this without having a UI? You basically,
the UI still executes, it just doesn't display it. So like the UI is still running internally, but like,
so you can say what's currently being displayed in the UI, or are you accessing internal data structures or something?
You can do screen tests, but I haven't implemented that yet in this framework. We do it actually inside of Neovim, which is pretty cool.
Let's transferring this to web. Like, is this basically getting the HTML and parsing the HTML and saying there should be a node like this, or is this more like?
No, it's running Lua code in the child instance and then determining if those things match up. So this was actually kind of difficult to make, but it was pretty fun because now I can script like, hey, for both sorting descending and ascending, do we actually get the right prompt when we're done? And so it like executes this as you go. And so then so these pop up. They're literally running these little tests right now inside of that child envim and like doing headless scripting, basically similar to like how people do with like with the web, right? They're like, oh, I'm just gonna reuse Puppeteer or whatever it is these days. I don't know what they're using. Or Puppeteer. I don't even remember if Puppeteer is the right thing. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that was pretty fun to make. In fact, I wonder.
No. Yeah. You build a testing framework for your Nvim plugin that is on par, or even better than what's available for web.
Well, it's a lot easier because it's a nice framework.
Nice.
Let me see if this works. This might crash Neovim. I don't remember what's supposed to happen here. Oh, cool. It just closes it. Okay, sweet. Let me change this to do test helpers. Where am I here? Oh. I think I can make it so that this takes longer to run each thing. I think I've got coroutine in here, or is it in this? I was hoping. Oh yeah, here we go. Tester.debug. Right. How do I set debug again here? Tester.debug equals true. Oh, that's not long enough at all.
What happened?
I'm trying to run the test here that we had and show you how it's working like each step of the way to show you how it's like how it's going, but and then feed vim.wait, I don't know, 100 or something like that. Let's see if that works. See, so it literally like did you see how that happened? That's what it does.
I saw it
inside of the test. Is it runs those like beep 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 beep, and then will pop, and then it does the result, and then it checks where you ended to make sure that it's correct or not, which is pretty fun. I feel like. So and then So we have this running, which is pretty cool inside of this one does. This one will type it and then presses Control P. So it literally like Control P spec. So this will. Oh, I can make it longer. I can make it longer again. Where did I do 100? Let's change this to like 500. So it's like literally doing each item, right? And then it's going to press Control P. It goes up one. And then it'll select that one and make sure that it did the right thing.
Jesus.
Isn't that cool?
And that's super cool. But if this is running headless, so that means if it's running headless, you still have those 3 buffers. You have your input thing, you have your selection and the preview. And then your assertions are basically matching the content of these buffers.
Right. So we can so I wrote some like generic helpers like, hey, what's in this buffer, or like who's what's open, or what's the file that you end up in, and stuff like that, so that we could sort of script those things much more easily. But Selenium, that's the one I was thinking of, Ashburn. Yeah, it's like a little Selenium for Neovim. Most of the time you don't need the UI, right? Because like lots of times you're testing some internal logic that is decoupled from the UI. But obviously, for Telescope, like a lot of it is UI. So we needed to test and make sure that like we're selecting the right things and whatnot.
How much code is this?
Oh,
it didn't look like a lot of code that you had there for your testing framework.
It's actually surprisingly small.
A lot of stuff here is surprising, by the way.
Yeah. I would so this part, this is kind of like the driver here that runs the test. So this communicates. I mean, this is after a couple iterations. I found sort of the way that I wanted things to look, which allowed me to pull it back more. But like the main bit is it like takes this execute test case. It has some locations keys in the spec that it expects to happen. It runs that function, it does some things, and then it writes back whether it succeeded or failed. So this is maybe like 250 lines. I wrote some helpers. These just basically like are the things that you can use to assert the results in the Telescope tests. This one's only like 50 lines. And then the framework itself, in Plenary Busted here, is 250 lines. This doesn't implement everything for Busted, but it does quite a bit. And then there's Test Harness, which is 170 lines. Of course, this reuses like path libraries and job libraries and stuff that we wrote as well. But that's pretty cool. I do want to show you, since Ober is in the chat, we've got Ober in the chat. Big time smarty pants over here. Hey, Ober, can you say how old you are? Ober, you can say it if you want. You don't have to though. I think it's on your GitHub, so I think it's okay to share. Is the README has the example of how this would work? I always forget how to do this. Jump to README. Yeah, Ober's in high school, by the way. Ober, what file? Where's the file that shows the examples of doing the async await style using libuv? Oh, you've got it here. You've got it here. Right. Okay. So, right, libuv does like a callback based approach, right, to like most of its things to do async stuff. So when you do like an FS, when you open a file, it's like, hey, okay, pass in the path and the read and the options, and then pass in a function. This kind of looks familiar to JavaScripters back in the day. This is a familiar place for a lot of people to be in. So Ober's been working on a cool async await abstraction for Neovim so that you can do this instead. Although we changed some of the names. But it's like, turn this function into an async function. It's async in some senses. It's not 100% async the way you might always expect. But then you can just await these FS files, and then you get to not have to be in the callback depths of pain. So that's another fun thing that we got coming up that should make like these sort of like oh, I want to chain together 3 jobs, or I want to like do each of these things and pipe the results through
Yeah.
JQ and then put that into my buffer, right? Like, okay, sweet. So you start here. Okay, it outputs some stuff. Eventually, there's a JSON blob. Okay, so now I'm going to write a function that parses the JSON blob. Okay, now I'm going to pump that back into Neovim. Instead of writing 8 callbacks deep, you just get to do the async await style. So I think that'll be like that next step of writing really like nice and easy, like fun stuff for like that kind of scripting external things and then dropping them into Neovim. And once again, I would say it's composing other tools, right? I think that's maybe the difference for like for what why I feel it's not, we're not abandoning the Vim philosophy, right? We're not abandoning it. We're just composing other tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of this is super fast. Like JIT is incredibly fast. libuv is incredibly fast.
Oh yeah.
So this is, again, like, I'm not sure if I should say the E word, but in Emacs world, you have some of these facilities, but they are not fast.
Yeah.
And this is fast.
Yeah, it is really
nice.
like so there's definitely like some stuff we need to fix for Telescope in terms of like performance and how the UI works and connects to these other bits. We have some ideas. But like I don't think people understand everything that you see in Telescope is happening basically on thread. Like on main thread. As you type, when you're in a 20,000 line or 20,000 file repository and you type things, that is on thread. We're not like spinning up, we don't have Go routines. We're not in like JavaScript land where we can just like spin up a million little thread thingies and no one knows what's happening, and that's been optimized by billions and billions of dollars. Like, we're just like running it on thread. And it's like insane that it works. I like was not thinking Telescope would ever be able to do something like fuzzy find over 1,000 things as we typed, but instead it can do like 20,000, which is just like mind blowing.
And I thought about it, right? Because when I told you this one code base with 120,000 lines starts to choke. Yeah. But then it's like, but it's not dying. Yeah. Like it's still
which is pretty crazy.
Like, it's not undoable. So now if you think, okay, you add coroutines and you add some sort of concurrency in there.
Yep.
To separate the drawing from the file listing.
Yep.
This would fly. Like.
Yeah. So there's like a couple things. The one difficulty that we've experienced thus far, as like a little background for why we haven't just like done it, is there's some things going on because Neovim is the one that owns the libuv event loop to start with. So it's a little confusing because like you're launched into an event loop that exists that is like kind of in some ways out of your control for Lua, because Lua actually isn't the host in this case. Most like threading libraries and other things like that expect this Lua state that you start to be the host, but that's actually not the case. So it's quite complicated to do things like figuring out, oh, you want to require something in your other thread.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work? Are you going to pass in the package path? Actually, like, what happens if the runtime path changes? Like, how does that other thread know? There's like a lot of... It's also quite different because like for us and Telescope, we're letting people run whatever the heck code they want in like each spot. Right? So it's like you can't just be like, oh, well, we know how to use this part like safe or good or whatever. We have to find a solution that like works for all those cases. So I'm still optimistic we'll find one at some point, but it's been like just mind blowing that like LuaJIT is fast enough to do all of the things. In
single thread,
single threaded performance is fast enough to just do this, which is like really interesting. So I mean, obviously some stuff is happening like off thread, like some IO things and whatnot that are easy to do off thread happen because you just spawn an external job and then you handle those events as they come in. But yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So TJ, I think that's all the time you have today.
Yeah. should we time? Did we even say what the title of this was here in our library? Wait a second, I need to match my body.
Yeah, match your body again.
Like this. Like this. Now it matches. So, did we even say that the title was A Talk to Remember?
A Talk to Remember. Hopefully, you guys all remember.
Yeah, I will. I wanted to cheesily end this with, this is certainly a talk that I'll remember. So.
Oh, man. Awesome.
Man,
okay.
This was fun. This was so much fun. I learned so much stuff. It's
I
so
had a great
impressive.
time.
All right.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Like, what? This is so impressive what you have built, for one thing, but then also, I'm a longtime Vim user, and when Neovim was born, I was there live and saw it basically happen, and this whole idea of, we need to, start with a clean slate in some places and provide better stuff. And now, what you just showed me, the 4 lines where you have a little Lua thing, you evaluate it, you write to a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
This is the primitives, or the, what did you say, like the mechanics and
mechanisms over policies is Lua's style,
and how it fits together and how everything neatly uses the other thing. It's just so powerful. I'm impressed. Like, I'm so, as I said in the beginning, like, I'm having so much fun with my snappy Neovim setup now, and the built-in LSP support, and now having better facilities to do scripting, because let's be honest, Vim script, like, I just didn't want to touch it for 10 or more years. So
I think there's something really interesting, like, just, I don't know, for me, like, Lua just feels so much better to write. Like, besides the fact that, like, for some things it's 1,000 times faster, or like other things like that, but it just feels like better to write. And I'm very excited to see what people are like coming up with in the like Neovim community with Lua. Especially given we can start using Lua rocks soon, which means you can install like an HTTP server written in C with Lua bindings built on top of it that then we can do crazy stuff with inside of, but fast.
I mean, the game changer might also be LSP support, because let's be honest, like, you use those APIs often to kind of modify your Vim instance. I don't, so having completion and just correction and whatever. Oh yeah, this is how you set the content of a buffer, whatever. This is just game changer, basically.
Definitely. Cool. Right. Well, maybe we can try and do this on a maybe regular cadence or something. Chat seemed to like it. Maybe we can try and find some times that work, and we can have you back on again and just do more hangout, Neovim exploration kind of things.
That sounds good.
Maybe one time you'll have to drive, and you'll need to show me how to write a compiler.
Live. I don't know if curse words are allowed on this screen.
We try and keep it pretty family friendly. Maybe if you curse in German, no one will know, though.
That's true.
Yeah, I won't know. You can just say that you were saying something, like...
Yes. Yeah,
like,
a poem.
Oh, right. Like, wow, what a good program.
Sunny. Let's do this again. If chat like this, me asking questions, I'm happy to always ask questions.
Sweet. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, Thorsten, and I'll see you soon, and maybe chat will also get to see you soon as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Say bye, chat.
All right.
I'm probably gonna maybe stream a little bit more, and then I'll see you later. So I'll drop you off stream.
All right.
See you, Thorsten.
Bye-bye.